Welcome in. We are incredibly glad you decided to pull up a chair and join us today for this deep dive
Absolutely.
because you bring us some truly fascinating sources to explore, and the document sitting in front of us today is really no exception.
No, it's not.
We're looking at a translated, deeply intimate, and frankly just breathtaking personal memoir today. It is simply titled History of Kouthay.pdf.
It's a it's a remarkable piece of text to sit with, really. I
Yeah,
mean, we spent a lot of time on this show looking at these sweeping historical accounts, right?
right.
Massive data sets or, broad sociological trends. But today, we are zooming all the way in.
All the way
We're
in.
looking at one man's life, and by doing so, we're actually getting a much clearer picture of the human condition than any textbook could ever really provide.
Yeah, and so our mission for this deep dive is to explore this sweeping real-life story of family separation, exile, and resilience. And it takes place across three incredibly different worlds: Laos, Thailand, and France. We want to extract the universal human lessons from this document about what it means to truly know your roots. And, you know, the lengths a person will go to anchor their family in a safe harbor.
Definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this because it is amazing how a single personal document can contain so much heavy, defining history.
It really is. And I think while we are looking closely at one individual, Kouthay, his story serves as a profound case study in displacement.
Hmm.
It gives us a granular view of survival. It shows us the absolute, unfathomable lengths people will go to for their children, and for a sense of belonging in a world that has completely shifted beneath their feet.
So let's start right at the beginning. Let's just ground ourselves in the timeline the document
That's
provides.
a good idea.
Kouthay was born on January 18th, 1953.
In Pakse, Laos.
Right. And almost immediately, the defining theme of his early life is established, and that theme is separation.
Yeah.
Because at just 5 months old, his parents part ways. He's raised by his mother, Chantai, alongside his maternal grandparents.
And the way he describes that early household in Paxi, it gives us a beautiful baseline for who he becomes later in life.
It really does.
He notes that his upbringing was modest, but it was absolutely saturated with warmth, with respect and courage.
Yeah.
That provides a vital emotional foundation. We also see that foundation solidify further when he's 8 years old, and his mother remarries a man named Chan Vongsa.
Right. So Chan Vongsa steps in as his adoptive father,
Yeah.
and he provides a highly stable, nurturing household for the boy.
Mm.
But, and this is kind of the emotional core of his entire youth, there's this phantom presence haunting his life.
Yes.
The mystery of his biological father.
What's fascinating here is the deep psychological impact of what Kouthay himself actually calls an absent presence.
Yeah, that phrasing is so powerful.
In psychology, we often talk about the concept of ambiguous loss. It's the trauma of not knowing.
Right.
Growing up, he didn't have his biological father, one Mahisanan, who's a former boxer originally from Nong Khai in Thailand. But he didn't have a clean break either.
No, not at all.
Instead, he had these fragmented clues, these little tantalizing puzzle pieces passed down by his grandparents that he just held onto fiercely.
He was basically carrying around a mental map of a family he had never met.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just a vague idea of a father, it was incredibly specific. For instance, he knew he had an older brother who owned a barbershop.
And not just any barbershop.
Right, one located right in front of the old Klangwang Wang post office in Nong Khai. And the memoir notes that this brother actually hosted him for a month, completely free of charge at one point.
Think about the weight of that interaction for a second.
Hmm.
You are staying with a man who shares your blood, who is
Yeah.
technically a stranger to you, yet he takes you in for an entire month without asking for a dime.
Wow, yeah.
It reinforces for Kouthay that these distant biological ties have tangible, real-world warmth to them.
Mm-hmm.
He also knew of another brother, Acock, who was a former boxer like their father, and who later went on to work for the electricity service in Bangkok.
And he also knew about two sisters. He specifically mentions Aunt Dokmai, who sold food near the old Nong Khai cinema in the 1970s.
Right.
For you listening, just imagine walking around with these hyper-specific snapshots in your head, knowing exactly where your aunt sells food or where your brother cuts hair, but still feeling entirely disconnected from the trunk of that family tree.
Those fragments create a powerful drive. They are the seeds of a lifelong quest for identity.
Yeah.
You can imagine the anticipation building over 2 decades.
And that anticipation finally boils over when Kouthay is 22 years old.
Finally.
The highly anticipated reunion happens. He meets his biological father in Vientiane, But the encounter is so fleeting.
Yeah.
He describes it in the text as a fragile, unforgettable meeting, but it vanishes almost as quickly as it happens.
We see the brutal reality of ambiguous loss closing back in on him right there. He meets the man he has wondered about his entire life, but it doesn't blossom into a new relationship.
No.
Shortly after that encounter, his father leaves to live in Bainlingson in the Lao PDR, and Kouthay writes that silence returned.
Oh.
He notes with a lot of heavy hindsight that he didn't know at the time it would be both their first and their last meeting.
How does a young man even begin to process that kind of emotional whiplash?
I don't know.
You wait 22 years, you get a glimpse of the missing puzzle piece, and then it's gone again. But the thing is, he barely has time to process it because his entire world is about to be upended.
Right, the personal turbulence is very quickly overtaken by historical turbulence.
Exactly. To give you some context on why he had to leave his home, and I want to be clear, we're looking at this strictly through Kouthay's documented lived experience in his memoir here. We are simply tracing his personal reality rather than taking a wider political stance.
Of course.
But by mid-July of 1977, the political shifts under the new communist regime made it impossible for him to stay. The environment became untenable, forcing him to flee his own country.
And the physical reality of that escape is just harrowing. We are talking about crossing the Mekong River at night. The Mekong isn't just a quiet stream. It is a massive, churning natural border between Laos and Thailand, with fierce currents.
It's terrifying.
Attempting to cross it in a small boat in the pitch black is a gamble with your life.
And he doesn't make this crossing purely on his own grit either. The memoir highlights a detail that completely stops you in your tracks.
Owed the money.
Yes. That dangerous night crossing was only made possible because of $150 given to him by a true friend from his village, a man named Mr. Feng, who was a forestry officer in Vientiane.
$150 in 1977 Laos is a staggering sum.
It's a fortune.
It really is.
Yeah.
To hand that over to a friend, knowing full well you will likely never see that money or that friend ever again, is the ultimate act of grace.
Absolutely.
It provides us with a profound insight into the human condition. Survival in extreme, destabilizing circumstances almost never happens in a vacuum. It hinges on the unexpected, incredible generosity of a community.
And that lifeline gets him across the river. From there, Kouthay becomes a refugee, landing in the Nong Khai camp in Thailand.
Right.
And once he is inside the camp, we see the power of those fragile family networks reemerge in a life-saving way.
He is incredibly vulnerable in this camp, but he is met by a man named Mr. Sofa.
Esther Sofa.
Mr. Sofa is a Thai policeman, but his significance lies in his marriage. He's married to the daughter of Kouthay's father's brother.
It's such a distant link.
It is a distant, almost convoluted link on paper, but in the reality of a refugee camp, it is an absolute anchor. It proves that those fragmented family ties Kouthay had been holding on to his whole life had immense protective value.
The journey doesn't end in Thailand, though. Eventually, he's transferred to a temporary center in Bangkok, and at this point, another distant family connection steps in to alter the course of his life.
Aunt Pauline?
Yes, his Aunt Pauline Sakta, who is the daughter of his mother's sister, is already living in France. And she navigates the complex bureaucracy to help him get the necessary paperwork to leave. So on March 27, 1979, Kouthay arrives in France, entirely alone.
He arrives alone, but he brings with him an unmatched determination to build a landing pad for the family he had to leave behind.
Yeah.
His early days in Paris, specifically in the 10th arrondissement, are just a masterclass in work ethic and community reliance.
Because a friend named Mr. Mannock completely changes the trajectory of Kouthay's arrival.
Right.
Mr. Mannock lends Kouthay a small studio, completely free of charge, located right next to his exotic and dietary food shop at 35 Rue de Metz. Kouthay puts his head down and works with Mr. Mannock there for 7 months, just grinding away to establish a foothold.
And that 7-month period is the springboard for what becomes a truly astonishing display of stability.
Mm-hmm.
After working at the food shop, he gets hired at Conforama, and he proceeds to work at that single company for 39 years.
39 years.
Unbelievable.
He just retired recently, on April 1st, 2019. For a man whose early life was defined by the trauma of separation, and whose 20s were defined by the chaos of fleeing a regime across a dangerous river, dedicating 4 decades to a single French retail company is profound.
It is the ultimate rejection of instability.
Yes.
He built a fortress of routine and reliability. But an anchor is only truly comforting if it is holding your ship in place.
That's a great point.
And for Kouthay, his wife and his 2 young children, They were still thousands of miles away in a rapidly destabilizing region.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, where the tension in this document peaks. We have to fast forward a bit to June 1980.
Oh.
While Kouthay is securing that steady foothold in France, working his shifts and living in that borrowed studio, his wife is taking on an unimaginable burden back in Laos.
Kouthay refers to her in the text as a mother of exceptional courage. And when we look at the logistics of what she accomplished, that phrasing almost feels inadequate. She is left behind in a volatile environment, tasked with keeping two toddlers alive, children who were born in 1976 and 1978 in Vientiane.
So they're roughly 4 and 2 years old.
Exactly.
And she decides it is time to make her own escape. She takes these two toddlers and makes her own crossing over the Mekong at night in a small boat. The cost of this crossing is 5,000 bahts.
We have to pause and consider the gravity of 5,000 bahts in 1980. This is a massive financial sacrifice, likely representing everything she had left.
Everything.
And the physical reality of the crossing is terrifying. Kouthay describes her journey as a crossing of fear, silence, and prayer.
Just put yourself in her shoes for a moment.
Right.
You are navigating a treacherous, massive river in the pitch black. You are clutching a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. You are demanding absolute silence from toddlers, knowing that any noise could alert authorities and end your lives.
You're risking absolutely everything on the hope that the water won't take you and the guards won't see you.
And she miraculously survives the crossing. She makes it to the Thai side, but she needs to get into the Nong Khai refugee camp.
Which isn't easy.
No, but because Kouthay had built that relationship with Mr. Sofa upon his own arrival back in 1977, Mr. Sofa is there waiting to help. He actually manages to sneak the wife and the two toddlers into the camp without going through the main entrance, bypassing a system that might have rejected them.
This raises an important question about the nature of the refugee experience, actually.
How so?
Well, we often focus on the cinematic danger of the physical escape, the river crossing, the evasion of guards. But surviving the physical danger is often just the prologue.
That's so true.
What comes next is a grueling, soul-crushing bureaucratic limbo. Even with Mr. Sofa's incredible intervention to get them inside, she and the children are trapped in the system. They spend 4 entire years bouncing between 4 different refugee camps.
4 years? Let that sink in for a moment. 4 years of raising a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in the squalor and uncertainty of a refugee camp, waiting for paperwork to clear, waiting for international agencies to process Kouthay's status in France so they can be legally recognized as a family again.
The psychological toll of that waiting is impossible to quantify. The sheer endurance required to wake up every single day in a temporary camp, not knowing if your family will ever actually be reunited, requires a superhuman level of fortitude.
Absolutely.
She protects those children through 4 years of administrative purgatory.
But finally, the breakthrough happens. In June 1984, the paperwork clears. The wife and the 2 eldest children arrive in France.
Thank goodness.
Kouthay writes about that moment of reunification with such raw emotion. He simply states, "It felt as if a part of me came back to life."
That reunion on French soil is the catalyst for a massive shift in the family's narrative. The agonizing multi-year survival phase officially transitions into the rebuilding phase.
Right.
They are finally together, and they begin to lay down permanent roots.
The family begins to grow in their new country. They welcome a daughter born in 1985 in Ivry-sur-Seine, and then their youngest son is born in 1990 in Lagny-sur-Marne. They now have 4 children in total.
Yeah.
Kouthay writes that these 4 lives gave him the ultimate reason to continue working his shifts at Conforama and building their new reality.
And they eventually find their permanent anchor in the French suburbs. In March of 1986, they moved to the town of Kouthay. There is a deeply illuminating structural detail in the memoir regarding this move, actually.
Oh, about the loan.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were able to buy this house in a housing development specifically because of a French law that allowed married couples with 3 children to secure a 20 to 25-year loan.
It is entirely fascinating how administrative details, things we usually find incredibly boring, actually serve as the unsung heroes of a family's history.
Right.
That specific mortgage law gave them a permanent physical home after years of drifting between dangerous rivers, temporary refugee camps, and small borrowed studios.
Bureaucracy is often the villain in refugee stories, as we saw with the wife's 4-year wait in the camps. But here, a piece of bureaucratic policy provides the literal soil for their roots to finally take hold. It offers them generational stability.
And they build this beautiful, stable life in France over the next few decades. The children grow up in Kouthay. Kouthay continues his long career. But even with all this success and safety, the unresolved questions of his past, that phantom presence of his father, never entirely leave him.
No, they don't.
Which brings us to a pivotal moment in the year 2011.
It's a moment of profound duality. It is simultaneously a pinnacle of family pride and a moment of devastating finality.
Right, because the family travels back to the Lao PDR for a joyous occasion. They are gathered at the Phra, that Luang temple, for the ordination of Kouthay's 3 sons.
It's a massive spiritual and familial milestone.
Huge. He is standing there, watching the sons he fought so hard to protect and raise, taking part in this sacred tradition. But during this trip, he reconnects with his half-sisters, and he receives crushing news. He learns that his biological father, one Mahisanan, passed away 2 years prior, in 2009.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of ambiguous loss that we discussed earlier, this is the moment the ambiguity violently ends.
It's just over.
You can feel the heavy pain of lost opportunity radiating from his writing. It isn't just the standard grief of losing a parent. It is the permanent, irreversible loss of the chance to ask the questions he had harbored since he was a little boy in Pax.
Yeah.
The door to understanding why his father left and who his father truly was is closed forever.
And that profound realization that the answers are gone forever seems to be the driving force behind the creation of this very document.
Exactly.
He realizes that if he doesn't write down the fragments he does have, they will disappear just like his father did.
The memoir transcends a simple recounting of historical facts. It reveals itself to be a deeply intentional, desperately important letter to his children.
It really is a letter.
He is taking all the fragmented clues from his childhood, all the trauma of the river crossings, all the grueling years in the camps, and synthesizing them into a legacy.
He addresses his children explicitly in the text. He tells them, "If I am telling you this story, it is not to evoke suffering, but to pass on the strength, courage, and love that carried us."
That's beautiful.
He tells them that they are uniquely positioned in the world because they are born of 2 shores, the shore of Laos and the shore of France.
That specific phrase, born of 2 shores, is incredibly evocative. He is explicitly giving his children permission to claim the entirety of their history.
Right.
He doesn't want them to just be assimilated French citizens with no knowledge of the cost of their safety. He wants them to know they are the heirs to a journey of massive sacrifices and incredible resilience.
He writes directly to them. "You come from a lineage of courage. Your roots cross borders. Your story is larger than you imagine."
Wow.
It is such a powerful reframing of the refugee experience. He isn't painting them as victims of history. He is painting them as the triumphant survivors of it.
And he also clarifies his own ongoing mission for the present day. He states that his purpose now is to actively find his paternal family again, to reconnect with his Thai origins, and to rebuild that bond that was broken before he was even born. He makes sure to emphasize that this search is not just an administrative task. It is a deep, vital inner journey.
It is a way to gather the scattered pieces of his life so he can hand them over intact, because, as he tells his kids in the document, "You are my continuity, because your story also begins with mine."
It's the ultimate act of preservation.
Yeah.
He is taking a definitive stand, ensuring that the suffocating silence that surrounded his own father will not be allowed to swallow his family's history ever again.
So, what does this all mean for us sitting here absorbing this translated document today? We have traced an unbelievable timeline.
We really have.
We've seen the astonishing resilience of a family navigating the absolute terror of a pitch-black river crossing. We have witnessed the grueling, quiet agony of a 4-year wait in refugee camps.
Yeah.
We've seen a man dedicate 39 years of his life to a single company just to provide a bedrock of stability for his children.
We've also seen the profound world-altering impact of community. We see how seemingly small acts of kindness dictate the course of history.
Like Mr. Feng.
Exactly. Mr. Feng handing over $150 when it mattered most. Mr. Menok offering a free studio in Paris to a man who had nothing. Mr. Sofa risking his own position to help vulnerable family members sneak into a camp.
Yeah.
These aren't just minor biographical details. They are the very hinges on which Kouthay's life turned. Without them, the story ends in tragedy.
It really makes you reflect on the universal human need to gather the pieces of our past to build a functional foundation for the future. For you listening right now, it makes you wonder about the depths of your own family history.
Absolutely.
What unspoken sacrifices were made by the generations before you just so you could be sitting where you are today? What are the documents, the stories, or even the small, fragmented memories that serve as the anchor for your own life?
This text is so powerful because Kouthay successfully put his history down on paper. He gathered the fragments of a broken bond so his children would know their roots. But as we reflect on his success in preserving this narrative, it leaves you with a lingering, much heavier question.
What's that?
What happens to the family histories of those who didn't survive those dark river crossings, or whose stories were simply never put to paper because the trauma was too great to revisit? How much of our own modern identities are secretly built on the total, enduring silences of the ancestors who came before us?
That is a profoundly heavy thought to sit with, and a perfect place for us to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for bringing this incredible source to us and taking the time to truly explore the humanity within it.
Mm.
Keep asking questions, keep digging into the sources around you, and keep seeking out the stories that build our world. We'll catch you next time.